relevant was his presence at the Bintumani 3?
Well, this was the idea of the committee for them to actually engage former vice president, former presidents, understand, that have served this country, because these are statesmen, you understand, to be part of it, because they are representing people, especially like Sam Sumana is the head of C4C, Dr. Kando Mikola is the head of NGC. They all got, they all, have representation in parliament, and their presence there will have, actually send a signal that indeed, you understand, we are in for, for peace. We are really serious for peace, because you don't want to see a Bintumani 3 that's, predicated its whole idea, objective on the peace and national cohesion. The ego there and see only SLPP people. You understand?
The SLPP feel disappointed that he rejected the
No,
request.
no. We would have loved, them to be there, but if they're not there, it shows that they are actually not sincere with the people of this country. They are not taking the idea about peace, seriously, because you are not busy more than the president, for God's sake. If the president is making time out of his busy schedule to be there, why don't you? If at all you have love for this country, what is more important than such an opportunity you have to actually channel, germane issues that hovers around our peace and cohesion in this country? What issue is that? And I learned a couple of days ago that the former vice president is going to be attending a particular by election in Kono, so he will not be able to be there. Assuming that is true, is that really a valid reason for him not to actually attend such a very significant and unprecedented conference for our nation? Of course, also members of the opposition. It's just exposed. This is why I've always been saying that the members of the opposition need to be sincere. They need to support the government, because, listen, it's very important. All of these things that are happening now used to happen in the past. We are not doing it. We are not saying it should continue. But members of the opposition by then, especially the SFP government, supported Ernest Kuruma, the former president, by then in parliament and in all sectors. They supported him. So we want to see a situation where members of the opposition will actually support the government, because at the end of the day, it is for Sierra Leone. It is not for SLPP government. If we succeed to achieve peace in this country, we succeed to achieve most of these issues that are highlighted now, the grumblings, the dissatisfaction, and all of these things, you understand, it is for Sierra Leone, not for SLPP.
So the conference it's for dialogue, and as it is a platform to share concerns and share grievances and find the way forward. But now we've seen the opposition and other political parties boycotting it, and there is this political divide in the country. Is the conference relevant? Will it make any difference?
Sure, and like I said earlier, the conference is not about politics. You understand? We thought it fit that they are key players, and they are, they form part of our
It's not about
political.
politics.
I'm coming. Part of our political structure in Sierra Leone, so that's why invitations were extended to them. If they say that they are not coming, it's well and good. The peace, the conference is going on. We have several other players. We have youth groups. I'm coming. We have youth groups that will be participating. We have women's group that will be participating. We have Okada riders. We have taxi drivers. We have paramount chiefs. We have several other sectors that are very important to our society that will be attending, and we are very sure that they are in the majority. So they are going to, whatever we discuss, they are going to form the basis of the framework of the commission, Peace and National Cohesion Commission, that will be establishing as a government. You understand? So we would have loved them to be there, but it shows that they are really not sincere to the people of this country, because it is their responsibility to provide leadership for the people, for their supporters and the people of this country, and ensure that they support the government. But to say they are not going there because of to follow their party, or to bring politics inside of the of it all, I think it's disingenuous. It's not proper, and that is not the ideal essence of any political party. You understand? The responsibilities of political parties to support. You have right to critique, but you should also be engaged through dialogue, and that was a unique opportunity for them. So saying that they are not going there, for us, we are going. The Bintumani conference is going on tomorrow, and it hasn't got anything to do with politics. We engage them not because we want to bring politics into it, but because we think that they are a political party, and we need to be engaged. We need to engage them because they have some following. You understand?
So
Them not going there.
talking about national cohesion, inclusive governance is very key. And having a divided politics, a divided nation, what's the relevance of building the national cohesion?
It is, like I said, APC alone does not form the, the large proportion,
Well, they are the majority of
the majority of position. But we have other groups. That's why I said it's not about politics. It will interest you to know that there will be other APC members who will be attending, representing various groups. You understand? In all the constituencies that they are representing, in those constituencies, we have SLB members there, we have APC members there, we have NGC members, we have independent members. And all of these groups, I will assure you that they are willing. If you go, on the streets of Freetown or across the county, you do vox pop and you sound the opinions of people. It will interest you to note that people are very much in support of it because they know we need it. Except somebody want to be economical, the truth that we don't need the Bintuman 3 now. But honestly, we need it because we are all seeing we've been in this country. That was why the TRC report recommended it. You understand? When once it comes to politics, we all see what happened. You understand? The division, the acrimony, the tension, and how are we going to address these issues? That come 2023, all of this political tension will not be there. This is the significance of this particular not to go and talk politics. You understand? It hasn't got anything to do politics or to talk about court case or commission of inquiry. That is our own government priority areas. We want to set the platform that even ministers now, it is clear that they are not going to remain in office forever. One day they will be held accountable. They will be called to book to account for their stewardship. That's why we are setting the standard very high for even our own ministers now. You understand? That's why the commission of inquiry is ongoing and it will continue, not to stop it. The court cases in court, it's ongoing. The government will not interfere. If members of the opposition, for those that have been petitioned, if they win their cases, it's up to them. If they lose it again, it is up to them. You understand? We care less about what is happening in court because we believe we want to actually ensure that we allow the independence of the judiciary to carry out its activities without any undue influence or interference. Okay, so we will not actually
with or without the opposition, the conference.
Yeah, it's going on tomorrow. Okay. It's from the 23rd to the 25th, and we want to use also opportunity to all those groups. If you think you are there, because of the hectic nature of those that are in charge, understand, and all of us probably we are unable to reach out to you. Of course, it's an opportunity. The invitation is extended to you guys to come there. Come with your group, put your position paper together. Like during the Constitutional Review Committee, groups were there. You understand? For instance, I was following some group that thought that there's need for us to legalize marijuana. You understand? They positioned their paper. They went to the commission, the Constitutional Review Committee. So this is exactly what we're expecting for members of the public. Put your position paper together. What you want to see or how you want to see the Peace and Cohesion Commission, to operate in Sierra Leone, and what are the things that they should be focused on to ensure that we engender that particular peace and national cohesion that will be in the best interest of this country moving forward.
All right, continue to stay with me is a member of the Strategic Communication Unit, Ministry of Information, Mohamed Lamranaba. It's 9:40 here from a studio clock, and let's take in another news item. Now, the House of Parliament has ratified grant and loan agreement in relation to the Freetown Wash and Aquatic Environment Revamping Project, aimed at increasing access to safe water supply and improve sanitation in Sierra Leone. Let's have more in this report.
Parliament have debated and unanimously ratified its financing agreement geared towards the improvement of water, sanitation and agricultural activities in the country. Presenting the agreement in the Well of Parliament, the Minister of Finance, Dr. Patricia Nyanga Lavali, said the project covers the Greater Freetown area and it is aimed at contributing a 15% increase in access to safe water supply and 7% increase in sanitation access and to improve our farmers in Sierra Leone.
This project has 4 components. The first component is on water supply infrastructure improvement. Under this component, we will be rehabilitating and expanding 2 existing water treatment plants. We'll rehabilitate 2 booster pumping stations, including the standby capacity. We'll rehabilitate 7 existing reservoirs. would rehabilitate 120 public taps. We would establish 50,000 water meters, improving access to households to save water supply. Under the second component of this project, we would construct 18 kilometers of water transmission mains. We would construct, as I mentioned, 9 water treatment plants, 7 new reservoirs, and establish 200 kilometers of water distribution pipes throughout the country. 200 kilometers. And of course, the 50,000 water connections. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, our government also entered into a subsidiary loan agreement with Guma Water Company, with the understanding that Guma Water Company would repay the loan to the government of Sierra Leone for onward payment to the African Development Bank. The proposed total financing for this project is $174 million.
Contributing to the debate, the Honorable Daniel B. Kuruma of the APC said Guma Valley Water Company is currently operating at a loss because of the huge debts owed by the government.
I would have also proven to you, with facts and figures, that based on the records of Guma Valley Water Company, this government owes Guma Valley Water Company the largest sum ever. For this 1 year in governance, based on the records of Guma Valley Water Company, this government owes Guma Valley the largest sum. Indisputable.
Adding his voice to the debate, the acting leader of the main opposition, APC party, Honorable Ibrahim Ben Kagbo, iterated their party's dedication to the success of the nation.
Have continuously proven to the leadership of this House and to the general public that we are dedicated to the success of this country. Anybody who attempts to undermine our unity and our importance is making a great error. This explains, Mr. Speaker, why whenever we have occasions of this nature, the ratification of very important documents, we stand and support the effort itself.
He referred to the agreement as useful and necessary, cognizant of Sierra Leone being a heavily indebted country, and called for the expansion of Guma to meet its current demand. Making his contribution, the leader of government business, Honorable Sidi Mohamed Tunis, called on all Sierra Leoneans to pay for water and avoid any attempt to politicize it.
It is therefore our responsibility again as members of parliament to ensure that the people of Western area are educated as to why, in fact, they should pay for water. And I really, really hope that when that time comes, where Guma Valley will begin to tax people to pay for water, our colleagues on the other side will not politicize it. Because that has always been the problem. It is very, very important that we begin to treat water as a commodity that has to be paid for. Otherwise, we are going to find ourselves in a situation.
Other members of parliament made their various contributions and unanimously ratified the agreements. In another news, the Minister of Political and Public Affairs, Honorable Fode Yumkela, has updated members of parliament on the status of the proposed dialogue forum dubbed the Bintumani 3, with the theme Democratic Consolidation for Peace and National Cohesion in Sierra Leone. Leonora Jawara, Star Television, Freetown.
9:46 is the time here from our studio clock, and this is the Star Good Morning Show, live here on channel 21. Well, now it's Wednesday. Let us relax a little and let's join our entertainment reporter Mohamed Bashir Sanusi for today's entertainment segment.
Leonora, and welcome to the special edition here on the Good Morning Show that has to do with entertainment. And once again, many thanks to you, Leonora. I have with me in the studios Dr. Manier and Circulate, known as Bakari Auna, and William Cabo is the CEO and founder for Sierra Leone National Youth Christian Award. We'll start off with you, Dr. Manier. You have this project at ANN, the Answer for Our Girls. And most times they will tell you that the church or the people from the gospel part has a role to play when you talk about morals. And we are expecting a movie from you called Answer for Our Girls. Take us through the entire initiative behind this upcoming movie.
It is actually geared towards communication with the grassroots people to know that the church has a responsibility to bring the morality message. And what actually happened, the idea actually came from Succulent, and he wrote the script and brought it to me, and I said, wow, it's good. I think we should be on the frontiers of preaching morality. And we also see it as our own way of contributing to what the First Lady said about Answer for Our Girls. And so what we are trying to do is that to tell the public that the church actually has a responsibility when it comes to child protection. And we have put all the drama together, the movie together. It's been a hard work, and I want to say thank you to all the actors and actresses who came together to make sure that this dream comes true.
I have to leave you and bring in, Circulate, you have been in the game for a very long time. You're a household name, you know, from hit after hit. You're a stand-up comedian, a good entertainer. You can perform very well. And the movie part of you is moving to a different height. And now we have the movie at Answer for Our Girls, which shall be premiering on the 30th of June. Yep. As Dr. Mani rightly said, the whole idea came from you and was supported from G's production. Take us through, what more are we expecting from this 25-minute short drama?
Basically, first of all, I just want to say thanks to God, because this initiative has been, so amazing, and we've been working as a church. Like every Sunday we're having a play to put up in the church, and try to see the best of the best in the church, how to raise them up and give them not only a national or international platform where people can maximize their God-given potential. So we've started it in the church, and we decided at one time and said we need to go out there and make an impact. So getting this message all together, the sense of our girls thing, and we thought it fit that we as a church we should come together to preach about morality, just as our daddy has said entirely on, that we need to go out and preach out the message about that. So we thought it fit. If we can address it into a movie form of thing, it can send more message.
So just having the message, you also said on the radio show that it's real entertaining.
Yep.
You know, how do you put your cast together, location, and how many minutes are we talking about for this Answer for Our Girls?
It takes a lot to get all the casts together. Mind you, I told you entirely on that we've been having a series of rehearsals to select some of the cast and to get another professional cast out there who can come in and make an impact, which we involve Ramadan Bai, which makes the movie looks very, 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 very tough and very, very unique.
Let's look about the premiere. When are we expecting it?
The 30th of June.
Okay.
Yeah, at 29 Freetown Road, Jesus Ministry Auditorium Church. Yeah.
I'll bring you back to just welcome William Cabo. He's the CEO for Sierra Leone National Christian Youth Award. You're doing it for the very first time, and you might have learned from the past. There are times when they do religious programs, you tend to ask if it's what the program, the dress code, the way of performance, the things that are happening there. How will you change the narrative before we talk about the award proper?
I've been seeing a series of awards, like you're saying. We want to see that those who are coming in, you will see that it's a different face and it's a different performance and it's a different award. Since it's a youth program, we are not going to include any the part of it is going to be a Christian-based award.
And you're doing it for the very first time. Take us through the criteria, nomination strategy, and when exactly do we have the Sierra Leone National Christian Youth Award?
First of all, I want to see the criteria. Well, I look into the churches, and I didn't want to centralize it into one particular denomination, so I came together and call different groups from different denominations and bring them together. We tell them that this is the initiative. We want you, since you've been working with your youth, and there are a lot of talented youth that are there playing keyboards, drummer, comedians. So you give us the nominees, and then we work through that and see how best we can appreciate them on that day. So that's how we go about it.
And so far, how many categories?
We are going to have like 12 categories.
And you have all the nominees set already?
All the nominees are set. We're just waiting for the date, which is going to be on the 1st of June 2019 at St. Anthony Parish, Outside Street.
What will be the cost, or it will be a free of charge?
Oh, okay. It's a payment event. For the start, we're going to make it like 20,000, so everybody will be on board. For ordinary and VIP 100,000, and donation is VVIP, so at least you can come and support.
The momentum is there. What will they take home? You know, there are times when they give you awards, you don't even intend to take them home, because it's difficult for you to showcase that I won an award as the best comedian in Christian youth, but you can never take them home. So what about you? What have you put in place?
I've put in place several of things on board. First of all, we didn't. Since it's our first time, we tried to bring some things from Ghana, and we're going to have a package and that we're going to give them on that day. At least when you see the awards and what's in there, you know that I've been able.
You get motivated for the second.
The second.
I have told you you're William and bringing Dr. Money again. Your journey in supporting talented people is not by default. Okay, even though you call the Alpha Bassi, the Vic Fauna and all, take us through the journey to this height and your passion to support the creative people in your church.
Well, GIST Ministry is actually known, or has been known, for helping young people to actually come out and showcase their talents. Like you rightly said, we've been in it for quite a long time. We have been the church that has supported young people, talented people in the past. The first gospel musicians actually came from GIST Ministry, like George Boigny, Vicky Fauna, Alpha Bassi, to name a few. And it's our passion. Once you equip people, they will give back. And once, what we're trying to do as the conscience of the people is to empower people to say, hey, you've got a talent. If you don't use it, you will lose it. And we have created this platform where people are encouraged and empowered to come and actually show out what they've got. We've got a series of things that we have planned to do. Movie is just one of them. Like Succulent actually said before, we've got quite a lot of things that we intend to do. We also want to encourage, for those of you listening out to us there, that GIST Ministry is the place to be. And on the 30th, come and see what ordinary people doing. Ordinary people are doing extraordinary things just through the power of God and the power of the gospel. We are here to make a difference in our own little way.
Reverend Dr. Money, as a way of wrapping up, how can someone keep in touch? There is this goal in the SDGs that says Goal 17, partnership, collaboration. And in the 21st century, we cannot do it alone. They said no man stand alone. How do you want to have new people to come and collaborate with that are not partisan, that can still maintain the ideals or the morals from the gospel? How can someone keep in touch with you?
You can reach me on, or GIST Ministry, on 079 220 and 079 220 203. I repeat, 079 220 203. Our offices are open from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock every day, except Saturday and Sundays. Please contact us, and also try to be with us on the 30th for the premiere.
Well, thank you so much, and over to you, Succulent, as a way of wrapping up. What will be your closing curtsies? And I can't wait to watch the movie. I know what you can do.
Yeah.
Even in serious situations, you can make people laugh.
We are about to launch our studio very, very soon. It's not about just movie itself.
That's right.
We have our studio in the church. Very, very sound, unique, and it's a heavyweight studio actually. And also we are planning to do this first movie in our church. So, I mean, to climax it all with something that is very, very unique. We don't want to say it all here because there are snatchers of ideas, snatch ideas. So we want to keep everything and get people, I mean, like the wow thing going on. We want them to come and say wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And the premiering on the 30th,
Yeah,
you invited
30th.
a couple of your colleagues to come about?
Yes, of course.
Okay, is it free?
No. Ordinary ticket is 10,000, VIP 15, VIP 100,000.
The community and the church alone is a sold out. So the extra people, at least, will watch the movie later.
In dream.
Thank you so much, Douglas. Over to you, William. We're wrapping up now. What next after the National Christian Youth Award?
We are trying to bring a youth program next year that will collaborate with the award. The first one will be something that we don't want to see here again.
Okay. People are scared to say out the ideas now. Okay.
Something that we don't want to see here again, and we believe that this year will be a success, and we are pleading to corporate partners that are out there. It's a self-sponsored program for now. We'll pray that those who are coming, you come.
In case they want to keep in touch genuinely, there are times when your sponsor will become your enemy. But genuinely, how can someone keep in touch for sponsorship for this National Christian Youth Award?
Or you can contact me on my number 033-922-814. I repeat, 033-922-814. And we believe that will be a blessing to the youth of this country.
Thank you so much. Well, that's all for today. And I had in the studios earlier Reverend Dr. Mania, and he's from G's Ministry and also the G's Production. And when I saw it on the flyer, Dr. Mania film, I know you are moving ahead of time. And also a wonderful brother that's circulates. Mr. Gordon, the bank.
Wonder shot.
Yeah. He's Wonder shot. A very outstanding guy, comedian, an actor, an artist, and all around there. Very supportive brother. And also William Cabo.
And I want to be part of this award.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. Even though I've not been invited.
But you're inviting yourself now. But that's collaboration.
We can share 50-50 on the gate.
Thank you. But that's all. And I have been your presenter for the segment, Mohamed Basim Sanusi. And back to you, Leonel Ejera, for the rest of the Good Morning Show, live on Star TV, on Channel 21.
We just get a word from the government. In fact, it don't become law. Say anybody where they catch, where hands they on girl picking them, you go prison. In fact, na life prison, no. That's it, my guy.
I know say na 15-year-old Pekito, and I then can baby then they are leg for WAP.
And now what's people got picking? Don't begin pull, Bobby. Then they rap up, pull them.
My brother, let tell you one thing where you for know. This not a political business, neither religious business. Really? In fact, na national concern now we get in our country.
Silence! Kaya. Dialogue.
Many thanks to you, Ambassador Bash, for bringing in our entertainment segment for today. And now let me round up here with my studio guest quickly, Lamarana. What are the expected issues we as Sierra Leoneans are expecting to see be discussed at the conference?
Like I said earlier, it's an opportunity. We will not want to preempt what will be discussed, but we as a government, we are just there to create the platform and develop the framework. And it is now left with those, members of the public from different sectors that will be there to actually say, okay, this is how we want the commission to be, you understand? And these are the issues we want the commission to champion as a blueprint for the establishment of the commission. So that is important. That's why it would have been very nice for everybody, to actually be on board and, of course, come and support the government, because, for us to achieve peace, we need everybody on board. But again, we cannot wait for those that are deliberately removing themselves from the process. because our obligation and responsibility as the people of this country, to those that are unwilling, or those that are not really sincere, or those that want to bring politics in everything we do. You understand? So for us, first of all, I want to believe members of the public are disappointed because these were people certain people are looking forward to meet with, and of course their presence here will have created the needed attention, and of course and all of that. So them hoping that them withdrawing from attending that particular conference will create embarrassment for the government, thereby bringing politics into such a national issue. We think that is unfortunate, and as a government we are committed. That will not distract us. We'll go there. They are, like I said earlier, they form some, they have their own proportion of the population, but we are 7 million, and of course we have got assurances from various other groups, the blind, the aged to be there, and of course we want to assure people that it's going to be open, it's going to be transparent. We have to have civil society there. United Nations is going to be there. UNDP, their representatives are going to be there. We have extended invitation to dignitaries out of the country to come and witness it, and it has to be open. Journalists are also there to report live. It's going to be streamlined live also on all the TV stations and radio stations across the country for the 3 days, and of course for it to be sincere and people get to see how transparent the entire process will be like. And of course also I want to believe the APC and of course the CFOC are actually taking the path where people will end up realizing that indeed they did not mean well for this country.
One last question. We've had Bintu Mani 1, Bintu Mani 2, and still people have not changed. The issues, most of these issues coming up are not new. Sierra Leoneans still a little bit bitter. Don't practice.
Do you know why is that? First of all, let's just distinguish this. Bintu Mani 1 was for us to end the war. You understand? The Bintu Mani 2 was for the idea about us having elections before peace or peace after elections. You understand? So people came out, and of course it was discussed, deliberated, and all of that. But out of all these challenges we have come from, there is this persistent recommendation from every conference we have had in this country. You understand? For us to establish a national commission for peace and cohesion. You understand? So successive governments have not been able to pay attention to that. And this government paid attention to it during its campaign manifesto. It promised the people of this country, and of course it's a manifesto promise also, because people voted for the government on these promises. You understand? It's also, he actually reiterated his commitment to that in his speech in the State of the Union Parliament. You understand? So it tells you that we need it as a country for us to engender our peace and cohesion in this country. So to say it will not yield dividend, you know why? Because of the implementation. People who are talking it, understand? For instance, like the previous regime, the former president used to say he will lay his life for the youth in this country, he will do this, he will do that. But at the end of the day, it was a lip service to the people of this country. Now, that reason why, before coming to the Bintu Mani 3 conference, we have developed the white paper for the establishment of the commission, a whole concept note, a proposal on how the architectural structure of the commission, how it would look like, what would be the recruitment process, the tenure of office, and of course the regional offices coordinated. Every region has to, will get a coordinator, a regional coordinator of peace and national cohesion. How they be able to work with youth groups, how they be able to channel these particular things we are now going to discuss in this Bintu Mani 3 for it to be rolled out. You understand? It's going to form the blueprint for us to actually get a clear roadmap as to what will be the function, the primary responsibility of the Peace and National Cohesion Commission. You understand? That is the essence of the Bintu Mani 3. So like I said earlier, it's not political. We are not going there to discuss politics or to discuss cases in court or to discuss commission of inquiry or to drop any case. You understand? Those are issues that we are focused as a government to pursue, because we believe we want to put an end to impunity, especially regarding corruption. Just recently, yesterday, you saw the release from the Anti-Corruption Commission. They have recovered billions of leons, you understand, from people that we are giving contract that were fake, people that stole or misappropriated government funds. Yesterday, a release was out from the commission, the Anti-Corruption Commission, where the former permanent secretary of the Ministry of Education and former director general of SALCA, you understand, Salonke Boleto, withdrawing a huge sum of $300,000 United States dollars. You understand? They have been indicted and of course they will appear in court. So these are the things somebody will want to say we should drop because of the for them to attend the Peace Commission. Is that really fair on the people of this county? Those the people of this county get what it takes to get their stolen monies back? Why is it that people will not applaud the government for going after these monies and of course make sure that you get them back? Because people stole those monies and they took those monies out of the way. You understand?
We'll have to
I know, but
we'll have to end
in
it,
conclusion, we are going on as a government with the Bintu Ferry. It's going to start tomorrow, so we want to create the indulgence of every cell union that means well for this county, to ensure that we are there to chart the way forward, to ensure that we engender our peace and national cohesion for the betterment of every cell union.
So every Sierra Leonean is invited.
Sure, if you are there, you have a youth group. If you are there, you have a youth group, and you think you have a position paper that hovers around us, engendering our peace and cohesion in this country, you are invited to go and present your document.
All right, thank you so very much. This is Mohamed Lamranaba, member of the Strategic Communication Unit's Ministry of Information. We've been talking about the Bintu Mani 3 conference that will be held shortly. And that's how we end the program for today. Thank you for watching. I am Leonora Jawara. Don't forget to join me tomorrow at 9 a.m. for another edition. Leaving you with our inspirational quotes for today, which says, push yourself because no one else will do it for you. Have yourself a wonderful day.
Hello there and a pleasant welcome to the local news bulletin file here on Star Television Network, Channel 21. I am Sienna Wright. First, the headlines. The Public Relations Officer in the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, Brima Michael Toure, has disclosed plans by the World Bank.
Over the years, so we continue to be excited. The World Bank has a very positive partner in education and in several other endeavors of government.
The Executive Director of Shepherd's Hospice, Gabriel Madie, has said there's still a serious and unfolding human rights violation in a small chiefdom called Timdale in Moyamba district.
Over 400 good people they was that night. Some they hold cutlass, some they hold knife, some they hold stick where they put nail panel. Some they hold something like fuck.
In a series of engagements with farmers and community leaders in various districts across the country, smallholder commercialization and agribusiness development project through the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Food Security has made a public disclosure for the rehabilitation of 142 kilometers of feeder roads in 6 districts.
They really they suffer from that place there. Because where racism come, the water they take over all the place in that area there, so they cut off the road.
The House of Parliament has ratified grants and loan agreements in relation to the Freetown Wash and Aquatic Environment Revamping Project.
We will be rehabilitating and expanding 2 existing water treatment plants. We'll rehabilitate 2 booster pumping stations, including the standby capacity.
Those were the headlines. It's now time for the news in detail with me, Sienna Wright. The Public Relations Officer in the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, Brima Michael Toure has disclosed plans by the World Bank to implement a 70 million World Bank project called Focusing Resources on Equity and Excellence, with the overall aim of improving teaching and learning environment as well as reduced cost of school and capacity building. He spoke to Leonora Jarara in this interview when he visited our studio.
Over the years, and so we continue to be excited with the World Bank as a very positive partner in education and in several other endeavors of government. But when we look at education, this is a project that is going to complement the free quality education very extensively in very profound ways, for the simple fact that it captures a whole lot of things that may have been a very serious problem in the free quality education. So focusing resources on equity and excellence, so we call it free project. So free education, and now we have free projects complementing the free education. The amount is 70 million, and the nature of the project is a multi-phased project. So this is the first phase, 4 years. We'll look at what is going to happen, and what are the things that must happen first before implementation is what we have undertaken. Part of those things, that is the consultative conferences that we have held in Kenema, where we had Kono, Kailaun coming to Kenema. A whole set of stakeholders, paramount chiefs, local council people, city mayors, local government councillors, officials from the Ministry of Education and other line ministries. You have school management committees, SLTU. Bank is very keen usually on making sure that before a project is implemented, it has a buy-in from all of the stakeholders that are directly impacted by that project. So if there are environmental issues, for example, the World Bank would want to make sure that those issues are addressed before the project is even implemented, or at least we have a way of addressing those issues before the project is implemented to make sure that their projects are in line with the existing laws of the land. And so it's just policy of the World Bank to make sure that if you're doing something, let it get the support and buy-in from the stakeholders that are responsible or that are going to be the direct beneficiaries. And so that is the reason why we start with the consultative conference, so that people give their own input into how we can mitigate some of the challenging issues that may come up in the process of implementing the project. So we started in Kenema with Kailaun and Kono meeting in Kenema on the 7th, and on the 8th we were in Bo with Moyamba, Pujeong, and Bond meeting in Bo. And so it's all about making sure that we let people understand what the project is going to be focusing on, the things that are going to be actually embarked on, and what would be the responsibility of all the stakeholders in making sure that the project succeeds. Components, we call them. So component 1 would be school improvement programs. So specific schools will be selected, government and government-assisted schools. Start with selecting a certain number of schools. And so school improvement programs would be, we look at the school, we look at the challenges, the things that could potentially make that school not actually improve in the quality of education. And so we'll make a decision as to how much we can fund that school in order for that school to be able to improve. Okay, because we have the second component, teacher professional development and management. You cannot run a free quality education effectively without a very solid and potent teaching force. And so resources would have to be spent on teacher training, teacher management, teacher development, and all of these things around capacitating the teacher to the point where when he or she stands in front of that classroom, he or she is able to deliver favorably. And so you look at the third component, system administration, governance, and accountability. You look at how to administer schools, heads of schools, what they need to actually provide the kind of administration, the kind of supervision around their institutions. And then, of course, making sure that if a penny is spent, someone is able to account for it.
The executive director of Shepherd's Hospice, Gabriel Madier, has said there's still a serious and unfolding human rights violation in a small chiefdom called Timdil in Moyamba district between the paramount chief Joseph Stephen Solongai and Member of Parliament Mustafa Mustaselu of constituency 095 and the people of Moyamba over the weekend A team of journalists led by the executive director, Shepherd Hospice Gabriel Madie, went on a fact-finding mission to Tyndale in Moyamba district. Let's take a look at the story.
The man say, "We're not going to lay down," but the man then come. I say, "Okay." I say, "We're not going to lay down now. All not going to lay down, but me, now me, all not going to lay down. Me at times at the commander door, I sit down on my veranda because I think I'm the youth chairman at the top. I observe the station at the top. So I left, lay down now. Now all the boxers safe everywhere. I no wear clothes, I no wear shoes. I lay down. Ah, you one star sports bike pass with 4 speed. So miss after 1 o'clock now and midnight. For go to 2 o'clock, midnight now. All man don't sleep. Now that transport they pass. Now grab, now pay, now sit down. As I sit down, now pay, you know today, now I hear footstep back in the door. Man they walk out with barefoot now gone. They hold their shoes there and they arm. Me said, now come on, now do. As I come on, now do, there was sharp torch light. I point her right down by the bearing ground side. Now I see crowd back there. I say, Musa, then I this. I had a bunny house. I say, Musa, I say, Sada, you are with the roots in shop, now your name Sad then. I say, now lay down, so. I mean, they tell me, I say, they come. I say, look, the kind crowd we pack here down. Now, this Musa come on, the other Baba back Sad then, himself Canada, one other Musa, they himself, now he come on, now himself points light. Now you see the people there. I see the group now, the boss. Now the power they will holla. Now the power they will now that the man the society, man society.
And they count the body.
Now they count, yes sir. Now they holla. Where they want to holla, who side the paramount chief in your side, then who side where the devil holla, now the other one then take and down. Now they all come group now, they join together now. They come it up now. Hey, Papa, they can group was see over 400 people there. Was see that night. Over 400 good people there was see that night. Really? Some they hold cutlass, some they hold knife, some they hold stick where they put nail panel, some they hold something like fork. If they far, iron, small iron, so it did. If they far, they set it rubber fork. As they left far, if they go right there, it go chip up. If not, it chuki. They come on the backyard. They hold them. Some they hold single bar right there. That next day. So now tell me about them. I say, Paddy, yes, this one not to affect business company. Let everybody man over. Let all my go na bush. Let all my hide. This kind of crowd we kaya. We know the only thing we go able to do. Pass we able identify the people that we come. But for say that we are with the front end for do anything that this will village here, then the point return. Let everybody man over. So the people they back there. All my go na bush. We run. We give them chance. Now them pull waiting they come for. Then go pull the shop. They enter inside. All the market where they inside the shop rest. Bag them. That day they tote 2 bag rest. That day they tote oil rubber. That day they tote yabas bag. This they tote zinc. Oma they go down. Now they go put fire now. But this man house. And this man house don't lights now. The place clear now. All over the town don't lights. Now we can see them now going. The one they will go do the act. We sabi there, we sabi the names them.
Mr. Gabriel Madiai, but a man, not to today, don't begin from long since. And they call it as a project man. And the whole meeting and the chief don't, I know they know. Not to 3, not to 1, not to 2, 3. And the man that one day, anytime he can have a chief down, there's a threat. Where he go, the chief don't know can get arrested. Challenge the day, then threatening so much. I don't complain several times. I don't report and I don't write a letter of complaint to DO, copy PS, local government minister, they call them, you know, they go there. Any economic country, it creates a problem. And they go under control. In fact, it only go with the idea say, na in and the chief don't. If they can't net, they come on and net, na me chief don't. That report don't go several times. So on Sunday, go hold this meeting. And now we have come a speaker in the PPL for stop that meeting. He said no. He not stop her. What's that invariably try for tell me? If now all people they go to mosque with paramount for no, or if they go to church with paramount for no, that is statement we give. I will not stop her. He not even take her. So after the meeting, after they attend the meeting, Let them show, let the salmons are ready for take the salmons. But there's somebody that is chiefdom, one about sad at them. They don't do it the 4 times this. All the time they try for molest me. How under Sansan, if value pass in primary to chief. They don't do it the other time, it go about 6 months or 8 months. But because I'm a young man, if family can't talk to me, I step to come back. But anytime they go to any public gathering, Nama they try for molest me, supported by Gribe Madiai. I don't get that report to due LUC. But up to now, for even set up a Gribe Madiai, I don't see her. All this incitement will go on a Gribe Madiai. Or if it is by law. If me don't pass me order, stop this meeting. If that not be, if you stop that meeting, I'm not physical discussion for no kind of my country. But they ever accept to that. They only feel say in the above the law.
In a series of engagements with farmers and community leaders in various districts across the country, Smallholder Commercialization and Agribusiness Development Project through the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Food Security has made a public disclosure for the rehabilitation of 142 kilometers of feeder roads in 6 districts. Here is the report.
Challenges them beaucoup because if you watch like I give an example, if you watch Damoko area, people like them Bella woman then they really they suffer at that place there. If you watch even the school going picking them, they really they suffer from that place there. Because we say where racism come, the water they take over all the place in that area there, so they cut off the road. So people are not get place. You know why I say the not get road for going to school because the school and the outside the school and the village is small distance they. So people are for making them go to school and picking them really they not go able that moment. If heavy rain come, people are not going the beginning go able cross that water there for going to that place there. And even Bella woman they like we get that labor pain, you want born. If you then take bike man for come Makali beside the PhD now the distance is far and people are really they suffer at that place there.
Mr. Skade, communications manager, if you actually look the faces of the people from Agogo Makali, you see they really glad. One, they know what it will mean. And this don't add value, and this don't bring something that the community will all maybe they escape with. Where in the city they come down they block completely. For them they take one point of attack and we say back on you really pay for 10,000 euros. If you God say they're looking for me soon, we're really happy and appreciate. We will take ownership now with property. And we're not just them so. Maybe the roads expert today that but we tell you say, who said get for the money to the go with the look. We take the money to the road. We say send the go out.
Good project, like everybody don't say. Very transparent, World Bank project and everything. But then they work with different agencies then on different aspects. When it comes to roads, like the Sierra Leone Roads Authority, and they get the expertise and capacity for the roads. So Sierra Leone Roads Authority, they support this project and any other project when it comes to the roads part of it. So now the stage road in soon I will see contractor they can for begin building Makali Macomb Road. Makali Macomb Road been in our radar for a long time. We know every road in this country, we know the status of every road in this country. So we know from Tennessee a road we really need attention. But with them project and they can, you just know they will choose road say because of this road I make. We get what we call requirements. We get what we call things that we for meet. With SCADEP come, like they say where they introduce them, SCADEP now for see how them farmers and they will get access to their market then, to aggregation centers and to the FDOs and etc. So that make that road they may qualify for like day inside this project. But it's good for we because we know ourselves know say that road is a very important road. Now
you're still with the local news bulletin file here on Star Television Network Channel 21 and on to our next story. The House of Parliament has ratified grants and loan agreements in relation to the Freetown Wash and Aquatic Environment Revamping Project aimed at increasing access to safe water supply and improved sanitation in Sierra Leone. Let's take a look.
Members of Parliament have debated and unanimously ratified 8 financing agreement geared towards the improvement of water, sanitation and agricultural activities in the country. Presenting the agreement in the Well of Parliament, the Minister of Finance, Dr. Patricia Nyanga Lavali, said the project covers the Greater Freetown area and it is aimed at contributing a 15% increase in access to safe water supply and 7% increase in sanitation access and to improve our farmers in Sierra Leone.
This project has 4 components. The first component is on water supply infrastructure improvement. Under this component, we will be rehabilitating and expanding 2 existing water treatment plants. We'll rehabilitate 2 booster pumping stations, including the standby capacity. We'll rehabilitate 7 existing reservoirs. We'll rehabilitate 120 public taps. We would establish 50,000 water meters, improving access to households to safe water supply. Under the second component of this project, we would construct 18 kilometers of water transmission mains. We would construct, as I mentioned, 9 water treatment plants, 7 new reservoirs, and establish 200 kilometers of water distribution pipes throughout the country. 200 kilometers. And of course, the 50,000 water connections. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, our government also entered into a subsidiary loan agreement with Guma Water Company, with the understanding that Guma Water Company would repay the loan to the government of Sierra Leone for onward payment to the African Development Bank. The proposed total financing for this project is $174 million.
Contributing to the debate, the Honorable Daniel B. Kuruma of the APC said Guma Valley Water Company is currently operating at a loss because of the huge debts owed by the government.
I would have also proven to you with facts and figures that based on the records of Guma Valley Water Company, this government owes Guma Valley Water Company the largest sum ever. For this 1 year in governance, based on the records of Guma Valley Water Company, this government owes Guma Valley the largest sum. Indisputable.
Adding his voice to the debate, the acting leader of the main opposition, APC party, Honorable Ibrahim Ben Kagbo, reiterated their party's dedication to the success of the nation.
Have continuously proven to the leadership of this House and to the general public that we are dedicated to the success of this country. Anybody who attempts to undermine our unity and our importance is making a great error. This explains, Mr. Speaker, why whenever we have occasions of this nature, the ratification of very important documents, we stand and support the effort itself.
He referred to the agreement as useful and necessary, cognizant of Sierra Leone being a heavily indebted country, and called for the expansion of Guma to meet its current demand. Making his contribution, the leader of government business, Honorable Sidi Mohamed Tunis, called on all Sierra Leoneans to pay for water and avoid any attempt to politicize it.
It is therefore our responsibility again as members of parliament to ensure that the people of Western area are educated as to why, in fact, they should pay for water. And I really, really hope that when that time comes, where Guma Valley will begin to tax people to pay for water, our colleagues on the other side will not politicize it. because that has always been a problem. It is very, very important that we begin to treat water as a commodity that has to be paid for. Otherwise, we are going to find ourselves in a situation.
Other members of parliament made their various contributions and unanimously ratified the agreements. In another news, the Minister of Political and Public Affairs, Honorable Fode Yumkela, has updated members of parliament on the status of the proposed dialogue forum dubbed the Bintumani 3 with the theme Democratic Consolidation for Peace and National Cohesion in Sierra Leone. Leonora Jawara, Star Television, Freetown.
That's all we have for you here in our local news bulletin 5 for the hour on Star Television Network Channel 21. I am Sienna Wright. Thanks for watching and do stay with us.
Carried attacks in East Africa and Somalia despite an increase in U.S. airstrikes. This marks a shift in the group away from military-grade explosives and towards homemade explosives. The report analyzed at least 20 attacks which had taken place since July 2018.
The UN and the U.S. findings, laboratories findings, that they actually made the breakthrough to make their own weapons is very alarming against the Somali public, against the Somali government, which means now Al-Shabaab has the ability to kill more people in the city squares, to target government positions and government bases. So this is a very alarming finding.
You're watching Africa Live on CGTN. We've got a lot more business news coming up after the break. Here's a look at the headlines. Zimbabwe raises the prices of fuel for the second time this year as power blackouts roll on.
Okay, guys, I'll get a meeting quick.
How much did U.S. sanctions on Sudan have to do with the current economic crisis in the country?
The death is announced of the late Jipu Leroy Oswald Joko Felix George, former Director General of the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Service (SLBS), who died in Manchester, United Kingdom on Monday the 29th of April 2019, aged 77 years. He is survived by his wife, Mrs. Fanian Aina Felix George in Manchester, former head teacher, Services Children's School, Wilberforce. Children, Glenn Jipu in Holland, Zinzi of UNESCO National Commission, and Arlene of NRA. Adopted children, Desmond Williams in the US, Victor George, Georgiana Wallace Johnson, and Basiru Kagbo in the US. Grandchildren, Jipu in Manchester, Glenn Felix George Jr., Joy Koroma, Javin Felix George in Holland, Desmonda, Fanian Basiru, Zinzi, and Esther Wallace Johnson. In-laws, Mrs. Regina Felix George, Mrs. Fatmata Kagbo, Mr. Christopher Wallace Johnson, Mr. Beresford Cole in Holland, Mrs. Phoebian Campbell, Mrs. Lydia Morrison, Mrs. Annie Kamara, Mr. and Mrs. Nathaniel Pierce, Madam Onike Tickle and family, Mr. and Mrs. Sylvester Williams, Mr. and Mrs. Jocelyn Jarrett, Mrs. Irene Amber Cole and family, all in the UK, Mr. and Mrs. Egerton Abori Cole and Mr. Bami Cole, the Cole family of 16 Victoria Street in Ascension Town, nieces and nephews Katib, Gladys, Kasho, Marilyn Tunde, Omalade Rogers, Inspector Sylvanus Cole, Joya Koroma, Solomon Cole, Winifred Kuni Samura, and Jacinda Cole, both in the UK, Augustus Campbell, Pastor ABC Cole, Leon Morrison, Ivan Cole, and Aina Plo, and Cashmond Baker in the UK. Cousins, Mr. and Mrs. Abu Koroma in Manchester, Sisi Abiose Gila Wesley, Sisi Augusta Freeman, Sisi Ajwa Morris, Hannah Mona Gillen, Waka Martins, and the Lee family in the UK, and King William Street off Cruton Road. Other relatives include Mr. Mona Toby, Mrs. Elizabeth Thompson, Namina Freeman, Mrs. Silu Kaba, Mrs. Josephine Smith, Mr. Chloe Williams, Mr. and Mrs. Kanja Kamara, all in the UK, Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Wube, Reverend Mrs. Teresa Wube and family, Reverend Tolly C. Wells, Sonnet King, the Koma family of 20C Ascension Town, the Toby family of Chapel Street, Mr. and Mrs. Arnold Green, Mr. and Mrs. Banky Finch, the McFoy and Finch families of 27 Barrick Street. Friends, Mr. Raymonde Souza George in Freetown, Mr. Michael E. Fraser, Mr. Bob Thomas, Mr. Yomi Lewis, Mrs. Christina Max McCarthy, Mrs. Eva Manley, and Mrs. Elizabeth Thompson, all in the UK. Mrs. Zipporah Keister and family, Mr. and Mrs. Nat Williams, Mr. Olukoka and Tox Harrison. Neighbors of number 12, 13, 18, 19, and 20 Victoria Street, Mr. Henny Gongu and family of Kinama Road, Mr. and Mrs. Michael Fome Kamara, the Robinson and Kano families, all of Past State Brookfields. Colleagues at Radio Salon and LSLBS, Mrs. Gina Banda Thomas, Mr. and Mrs. Pat Lewis, Mr. Silly Jackson Smith, Mr. and Mrs. Nesto Thorpe, Mr. Emmanuel Bedford, Mr. and Mrs. Ebukulu Campbell, Mr. Dennis Smith, Mr. Makomi Brown, Mr. Alfred Koroma, Mr. and Mrs. Kindy Collier, Mrs. Georgiana, Mr. Vivian Stark Davis, Mr. and Mrs. Joshua Nicol, Mr. and Mrs. Victor Wilson Clark, Mr. Samuel Valcastle, Mr. Daniel Oldfield in Canada, Mr. Harun Rashidin in the US, Mr. Albert Momo in the UK, Super Morris, Lucky J, Durosimi Thomas, Rhoda Sisei, Veronica Coca, Mrs. Frances Kamara, Angela Wesley of Dwazak, Mrs. Flores Conte, Margaret Jones, and Mr. Abubakar Chalo. The Board of Directors, Director General, Management and Staff of the Ceylon Broadcasting Corporation, SLBC, the clergy and members of Buxton Methodist Church and Warren Memorial Methodist Church, members of Buxton Men's Fellowship. Funeral and communion service will take place on Friday, 24th May 2019 at the Wally Range Methodist Church, Withington Road, Manchester, and will be laid to rest at the Southern Cemetery. A memorial and communion service will be held at the Buxton Methodist Church, Charles Street in Freetown on Friday, 24th May 2019 at 3 p.m. The family regrets any omission of names as they are considered equally important. May his gentle soul rest in perfect peace.
The death is announced of Memunatu B. Karuma, formerly of Obafunkia and of Waterloo. She is 45 years old. Funeral arrangements will be announced later.
Star TV, tell your mama, tell your papa, Star TV, tell your sister, go tell your brother, Star TV, don't forget your granny and your grandpa, Star TV, yeah, the mama, 24/7, Star TV, for your games and sport, yeah, advertisement, yeah, information, education, entertainment, stay glued to Star TV. #1 TV na saloon. Oh, Star TV. It don't come for you and me. Star TV. See on channel 21, mama. Star TV. On channel 21, baba. Star TV. On channel 21, yeah. Star TV. This is Star TV on channel 21. Stay glued.
Large number of jobs opportunities. Therefore, the Chinese government has positioned agriculture as one of the important areas of our bilateral cooperation. We hope that by upgrading Zimbabwe's agricultural technology, we are able to better help Zimbabwe combat against poverty and achieve better and faster socio-economic development.
The ambassador to Zimbabwe says China will continue to support Zimbabwe's agricultural sector, given its pivotal role in the country's economy. Astatal, CGTN.
To Sudan, and in part, the sit-in protests that eventually led to the ouster of Omar Hassan al-Bashir were a direct response to a long-running economic crisis that included food shortages, sky-high inflation, and soaring prices. Some experts, however, claim that long-running U.S. sanctions on the state also contributed.
For 20 years, the U.S. had imposed trade sanctions on Sudan. Experts claim these sanctions kept the country's economy in stranglehold. Businesses are unable to operate dollar transactions, and investors have shied away.
Babies die because of lack of medicine and equipment. The main cause of their death is the U.S. sanction and the hegemony. If not for these sanctions on the Sudanese economy, I think Sudan would have risen up. It would have benefited from the multiple resources in oil, minerals, agriculture, and industry. It is very important to point out that the American sanctions, unfair policies, and hegemony crippled the Sudanese economy and limited development of the country.
The U.S. has in currency and weapons the control over the primary principle.
Therefore, they imposed the conditions and pressed the other side. The former government would meet the requests and the new list came out.
The United States planned and led the separation of the South. They wanted a newborn state in the South in its control to benefit from its resources and strategic role in the Horn of Africa. Sudan lost 70% of its resources. Oil sector took a hit, which led to a serious economic crisis in Khartoum.
Washington later lifted the trade sanctions on Sudan in October 2017, but the state sponsor of terrorism listing remained. It has warned it will continue to block access to funding until Sudan is off the terrorism list.
Until the moment, Sudan is unable to reintegrate with the international banking system. This measure has affected the citizens inside and outside Sudan. I do not think there is a clear reason and justified reason why Sudan is on the list for state sponsors for terrorism.
Washington announced in November last year it was beginning talks with Khartoum to remove the listing, but the process was delayed in January by the U.S. government shutdown. Chombono, CGTN.
The news continues here on CGTN. We have a lot more wonderful and amazing stories coming your way, including Egypt launches first digital drama platform.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Ramadan month is the biggest entertainment season in Egypt. Digital on-demand services have been taking away revenues from Egyptian TV channels. So this year, Egypt launched its first digital drama platform. More on this new platform and the Egyptian TV industry with our Cairo correspondent Adel El-Maraki.
In Ramadan, most Egyptians leave work early to break their fast after sunset. And this means one thing: more time to watch TV. That's why all of Cairo's billboards have switched to market TV series. For long, Egyptian producers have been sharing part of their revenues with foreign streaming websites. This year, producers have stopped putting their productions on platforms like YouTube, opening the first Egyptian digital service.
This is a natural development in the Egyptian entertainment industry. Going digital is inevitable. The only problem with Egypt's first platform is that the decision came very late, too close to Ramadan season. They didn't do the proper testing on security, which made it vulnerable. It's still an important step, which we hope could compare to Netflix.
Founded by a union of Egyptian production companies, Watch It appears to enjoy government backing to make this first of its kind platform succeed. That producers merge has funded an immense marketing campaign. And days after announcing its service, suddenly all piracy websites that streamed Egyptian entertainment content have shut down.
We've been struggling with these piracy platforms for so long. They have been arming the industry. I've spent millions on productions. Channels would pay millions more to get rights. Then someone on the internet displays my content for free, causing immense financial losses. The Arab world and Egypt in specific still lack the control over these piracy sites. If the government manages this time, that's a breakthrough.
Thousands rush to register for Watch It services, but it's having a rough start. Its services have crashed. 2 weeks into Ramadan, its users are still deprived from digital access.
Egypt is seeking independence from foreign entertainment streaming platforms. Watch It so far is not a success, and it's still not clear if it will help to boost digital production and content. Profit is maybe the main derivative for this new platform. Still, it's a historic step in the Egyptian entertainment industry. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
This is Africa Live on CGTN. Don't touch that dial. We have your sports news coming up after the break. Here's a sneak peek at the headline. In sports, Ghana's Asamoah Gyan retires from international duty after captaincy snub.
Africa, where champions are made, records are broken, legends are born. We're there for every goal, for every knockout, for every step of the way. Match Point, only on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Let's talk a bit of football. With just a month before the start of the Africa Cup of Nations, Ghana's all-time leading goal scorer, Asamoah Gyan, has quit the national team. Gyan announced his international retirement shortly after he was removed as the Black Stars team captain. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rofai reports.
Asamoah Gyan's announcement comes just 32 days to the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations. He claims he was asked by head coach Kwesi Appiah to relinquish the captaincy and serve in a different capacity ahead of the tournament. According to the player, his decision to retire is designed to save the Ghana national team from further mayhem at the 2019 AFCON. There have been reports of tension within the national team since 2016 because of differences between Gyan and current deputy captain Andre Ayew. Although they both deny this, it's been linked to poor performances during tournaments during that period. Ghanaian football fans have been reacting to this development.
Asamoah Gyan is a good striker. I think his absence in the team will affect us at the tournament. I think the GFA should make him reconsider his decision.
Among all the strikers in the country, Asamoah Gyan stands tall because he's able to score goals. So if he's not going to be part of the Africa Cup of Nations, the government must intervene.
Asamoah Gyan is Ghana's all-time top scorer with 51 goals since his debut in 2006. He is also Africa's leading top scorer at World Cups with 6 goals in 3 tournaments. Turkey-based midfielder Andre Ayew is tipped to be named the new Ghana captain ahead of the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
Well, with news just in, Asamoah Gyan has rescinded his decision to quit the Ghana national football team after an intervention from President Nana Akufo-Addo. Now, that means he's now available for selection for next month's Africa Cup of Nations in Egypt. We're not done with football just yet, though. Europa League finalists Arsenal have confirmed that midfielder Henrik Mkhitaryan will not be part of the squad for the finals against Chelsea in Baku. The Armenian international's participation in the match had been in doubt due to the ongoing conflict between Azerbaijan and his native country. In a statement, the club said it was collectively agreed he would not be traveling with the party. Mkhitaryan has made 39 appearances for Arsenal in all competitions this season, scoring 6 goals.
It's bad news, but we cannot do anything for these issues. It's very, very personal, personal decision, and we need to respect him. And I don't understand now their political problems, but I must respect.
Meanwhile, Frenchman Olivier Giroud has signed a new 1-year contract to stay with Chelsea for 1 more season. The 32-year-old striker has scored 17 goals in 62 appearances for the Blues since joining from Arsenal in January 2018. This season, Giroud has scored 10 goals in the Europa League to help Chelsea reach the finals against his former team. The Frenchman is also the first Chelsea player to hit double figures for goals in a single season of European football. And Manchester City forward Raheem Sterling has said the only way racism will be overcome in sports is if serious penalties are handed out to the associated clubs. Sterling made the comments during the Wall Street Journal's Future of Everything Festival in New York. Sterling, who was a victim of racist chants this season, emphasized that clubs should be slapped with an automatic 9-point deductions in order to play 3 games behind closed doors if their supporters indulge in racist behavior.
and I wanted to get another player's point of opinion on it. So I spoke to our captain, Vinny. I asked him to word check it. He didn't do the best of jobs, as you guys can see. So he was happy with it. He kind of said to me as well, Raheem, you know, the issue is not the fans in the stadium. The issue is that there's not enough, you know, BAME people in offices that makes these decisions, you know. And what he said is the truth. There's not enough black people, Asian people in these high places to have a say.
And things are getting really interesting in the world of boxing. Unbeaten WBA welterweight champion Keith Thurman has vowed to end 8th Division world champion Manny Pacquiao's career when they fight in July. The 30-year-old Thurman is seen to be the toughest test yet for Manny since his defeat by Floyd Mayweather back in May 2015. Pacquiao, on the other hand, says he chose Thurman because he is unbeaten and would want to prove that at 40 years, he is still a great fighter.
For those who know boxing and truly understand boxing history, you know, times change. I believe boxing has come to a new era. Floyd is gone. Pacquiao is here. Come July 20th, he will disappear, okay? He will disappear. He announced him as a senator. He belongs as a senator in the Philippines. With all respect, he is a legend. He will always be remembered in the sport. But I'm doing to Manny Pacquiao what he did to Oscar De La Hoya. You can Google it if you want to. Oscar De La Hoya never fought again. All right? Facts.
That's going to be a good fight right there. But to the NBA playoffs, Kyle Lowry and Kawhi Leonard led the Toronto Raptors to a 120-102 blowout victory over the Milwaukee Bucks to even the Eastern Conference Finals at 2 games apiece. The Bucks took an early lead in the first quarter with their MVP candidate Giannis Antetokounmpo making an easy layup and a dunk, putting his team up 12-5. However, in the second quarter, the Raptors roared back and took a 10-point lead through a Serge Ibaka dunk. In the third, the home side kept pulling further and further away as Leonard took over the game, hitting jump shots and fadeaways, as well as assisting his teammates. Kawhi's three-point shot in the fourth quarter to put the Raptors up 112-93 was the dagger, with the Raptors eventually holding on to win 120-102. Well, that's it for this edition of Africa Live. Remember, you can send us your feedback to the contacts on the screen and follow us on digital media platforms. For the team, I'm Richard Sherlintah saying thank you so much for watching, and we will be right back here same time tomorrow. Till then, take care.
This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Live from CGTN Beijing, this is Asia Today.
Hello and welcome. I'm Joy in Beijing. It's 7 p.m. here in the Chinese capital. Coming up on Asia Today. China-U.S. relations take another turn for the worse as Beijing hits back and reports Washington is considering sanctions on 5 more Chinese tech companies.
No, I'm not a hero. I never wanted to be a hero.
Meanwhile, Huawei is getting on with business in Europe, saying America's ban will have minimal impact. We speak to the Chinese tech giant's founder and CEO about the recent turmoil. Australia tests a world-first camera system which catches drivers who text while driving. Well, China has slammed the U.S. over reports it's considering Huawei-like sanctions on as many as 5 Chinese video surveillance companies. It said Washington's actions were out of order.
Recently, the United States has been abusing its state power to willfully smear and suppress companies of other countries, including Chinese companies. We have made it clear that China is opposed to such practice. China has always required its companies to abide by market law and international rules when conducting business in other countries. At the same time, we have been asking other countries to provide a fair and non-discriminatory environment for Chinese companies. Trade and investment relations between countries must be based on mutual respect, equality and mutual benefit.
And the restrictions would ban those firms from accessing American components or software. And U.S. companies would have to obtain government approval to supply parts to these firms. Well, Chinese firms such as Hangzhou Hikvision Digital Technology and Zhejiang Dahua Technology are thought to be on the list. Hikvision is the world's largest seller of surveillance equipment and employs 34,000 people worldwide. Well, the reports have sparked speculation that the trade war between the world's leading economies could inflame further. Meanwhile, Huawei has reaffirmed its commitment to roll out 5G the European way. The company's chief representative to the EU institutions, Abraham Liu, says Huawei's 5G solution is not just the test on the market, it's not just the best on the market, but to a large extent a European product and tailor-made for Europe's needs. On Tuesday, Huawei unveiled its new flagship phone, Honor 20 series, in London. And this comes as the Trump administration has added Huawei and its affiliates to an export blacklist.
Difficult to keep up with events here in Washington. Late last week, as you know, the U.S. moved to ban U.S. suppliers from selling equipment to Huawei, citing national security reasons. That led to Google, who operates the Android operating system, to basically move to stop Huawei using that in new cell phones. Well, then after markets closed here on Monday, the U.S. Commerce Department announcing a 90-day reprieve, not just for Google, but for everyone who supplies Huawei. It goes on to say, in short, this license will allow operations to continue for existing Huawei mobile phone users and rural broadband networks. Rural broadband networks depend on Huawei equipment because it's cheaper and good over long distances, and they're in Trump's rural heartland. It's quite incredible that they did not talk to them beforehand, or maybe something got lost in the shuffle. Very confusing here in terms of trade and tech policy in the United States. And of course there's the Google issue. Google, of course, just after basically telling its second biggest cell phone customer that it can't use its system, now can reverse that, it looks like, for 90 days. And I continue, this is having immediate effects. This decision in Washington against a Chinese multinational firm that operates in Asia, Africa and Europe really left cell phone users really concerned. So the big question is, what happens now? This 90-day reprieve lasts until about the middle of August. During that time, of course, US President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping will be side by side or together at the G20 meeting at the end of June in Japan. We have the trade talks, of course, stalled because of finger pointing. We have this new tech war as well. It's going to be very interesting to see if the two sides can work this out. I mean, the big question for Beijing is, who do you talk to and what is the US policy right now? Nathan King, CGTN, Washington.
Just days after Washington put Chinese company Huawei on a trade blacklist, its founder and CEO sat down for an exclusive interview with China Media Group. And Ren offered his stance on the current state of affairs and his outlook for the company's future. Here is Zhou Yun with more.
He doesn't want to be called a hero and said buying Huawei's products should not be seen as a matter of patriotism.
No, I'm not a hero. I never wanted to be a hero.
Huawei has become one of the U.S. main targets amid the rising tensions between the world's two largest economies. The U.S. banned American companies from doing business with the Chinese tech giant, and chief among them are Google and Intel. There are also widespread concerns that Huawei is going through the most dangerous and difficult times, but Ren Zhengfei doesn't think so.
No, the most dangerous time for Huawei was before the Meng Wanzhou incident, when the employees were rich and unmotivated, unwilling to do the hard work. Now they have been motivated, and their effectiveness is growing. How could we say it is the most dangerous time? The company is in its best state.
Ren Zhengfei also says the U.S. move will have some impact on its products, but the most advanced sectors such as 5G will not be affected. Huawei says they're prepared if the trade tension between China and the United States doesn't end soon. They also said that the longer they fight, the stronger they may become. So Yun, CGTN, Beijing.
And I talked about the ongoing U.S. trade war with Professor Yan Xuedong. He is a scholar of international relations at Tsinghua University. We talked about power politics and how the trade dispute is reshaping international relations.
During the Obama's period or before the Obama, and the American government mainly concerned to confront China in political and security fields rather than economic fields. They concern, but Trump has a different concern. So he gave the preference, the priority to economy, but mainly for trade. That's why he initiated the trade war with China. And concerning the current situation, both sides still want to continue the negotiation rather than end it. So I think that there will be few rounds of negotiation between China and the U.S., but I cannot guarantee they reach an agreement finally. I don't know.
If they can come to an agreement, what kind of an agreement will it be, and what does it mean for China's economy and the U.S. economy?
Well, if they reach an agreement, means both sides and face less damage or loss caused by the trade war. It doesn't mean that both sides will benefit more from it.
The White House is right now, some say, is occupied by a group of nationalist thinkers like Robert Lighthizer, Peter Navarro, and formerly by Stephen Bannon. They believe America has been ripped off by China systematically. That's why they need a historic turnover of everything. Do you think their thinking and strategy will make a difference on the policy of the administration?
Well, I think it's very obvious. And this government gave the first priority to American economic interests rather than Americans' international leadership. So this is an issue about the sequence of the priorities.
But do you think Trump's prioritizing economic competition with China will serve America well?
I'm not so sure. When a country gave the priority to economic interests, that indicating the country becomes weaker.
People are saying the capabilities of a nation largely depend on the technological prowess.
Yes.
Whether you can claim the high end of value chain depends on your technological know-how.
Traditional powers, when they talk about technology, they mean military technology. It doesn't mean they use the technology to generate wealth, to generate money. Now, these are different concepts. So currently, for Trump, they concern the 5G under the excuse of national security. Actually, their real concern is not security, it's wealth, because the digital economy heavily rely on the communication technology.
And it's time now for a look at some other major stories making headlines from around the world. The UK Prime Minister's final bid to salvage her EU divorce deal looks unlikely to get enough support in Parliament. Initial indications suggest that Theresa May's offer of a vote and a second referendum and closer trading arrangement with the bloc have failed to win over either opposition lawmakers or many in her own party. 5 Catalan separatist leaders who won election to the Spanish parliament last month were temporarily released from jail on Tuesday to be sworn in as lawmakers. Other newcomers include 24 far-right lawmakers, a record number of women, and the biggest socialist group in years. And in the U.S., a battery of tornadoes have hit the south-central state of Oklahoma, bringing heavy rains and rising floodwaters. The severe storms damaged homes and blocked roadways. Rescue crews had to pull dozens of people from the rising waters. Meanwhile, a second storm system is brewing and could hit the same region later this week. And you're now watching Asia Today here on CGTN. Still to come. At least 6 people are killed in Indonesia as protests continue over President Joko Widodo's re-election. And we speak to a leader of a homegrown religion in Vietnam and learn how it thrives by drawing on elements from other faiths. Stay with us on Asia Today.
You've traveled to places where others couldn't be, seen things others couldn't imagine, and heard stories you can't be sure whether to believe. They say that you're privileged, that people look up to you. But only you know how much effort you've made. You're on the ultimate journey to discover a country with 5,000 years of history and nearly 1.5 billion people. Is it a green countryside or a vast sea of neon lights and skyscrapers? Is it a dangerous land choked with smog or the blue sky of a summer's day? What is this China for you? And what is this China for the rest of the world? CGTN. See the difference.
In Indonesia, 6 people have been reportedly killed in violent protests in Jakarta following the announcement of President Joko Widodo's re-election. On Tuesday, the nation's election commission confirmed Jokowi had beaten his challenger with more than 55% of the vote. Prabowo Subianto refused to accept the result, however, citing widespread fraud. Meanwhile, authorities have denied accusations that the 6 were killed by government forces.
Senjata disimpan di gudang, mereka menggunakan perisai.
Their weapons are kept in warehouses and they use shields and batons. This of course includes other equipment, but not firearms. Therefore, it's impossible for soldiers to murder civilians during protests. But these victims fell because of thugs, not protesters. Thugs, because they attacked police dormitories, they attacked police stations, burned cars, created chaos.
So what is about the violence on the streets? Standing by for us in Jakarta is our correspondent Sukina Arawadia. Sukina, yesterday we talked about the possibility of social unrest, but how do you think the authorities have been responding to the protests in Jakarta?
The situation is relatively safe right now. Yesterday, we did see some clashes between police and protesters as they were trying to disperse the masses throughout the night. But today, the situation is a bit more calm, you can say. The protest today was mainly centered outside the Election Supervisory Agency's office. That's where Prabowo initially brought his case to before it was rejected for lack of evidence. The authorities have taken multiple steps to maintain safety across the country. Firstly, they have deployed more than 30,000 personnel around Jakarta, mainly at areas where people are gathering. So that's near the Elections Commission building and surrounding areas. They've also closed several roads leading to this area where we are at right now. This is what authorities call the high alert areas. A few MRT stations in the center of the city have also been closed at least until midnight tonight for safety concerns. We also know that since this afternoon, the government has partially blocked few social media platforms, mainly WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook. The purpose is to stop fake news from circulating. They have learned their lesson from similar protests in the past where
people immediately take to social media to post photos and videos that further create conflict and violence during these sensitive times.
About the reasons why they took to the streets, because it happened after the challenger, Prabowo Subianto, refused to concede defeat in this election. What has the Election Commission say about these allegations, and do you think it will come to any kind of closure?
Well, we were in the middle of the protests throughout the day, and from what we heard from those protesters is that they say they simply want justice. They're accusing the Elections Commission for fraud again. This same thing happened back in 2014 as well, when Prabowo lost against Joko Widodo also. What Prabowo wants is a complete recount of the results, which currently show that Joko Widodo won by 55% of the votes, as you already mentioned. Prabowo's team did mention that they wanted to get the message across with people power. That's exactly what we saw earlier today. But right now we are waiting for Prabowo to take this matter to the Constitutional Court. That entire process might take more than a month, and within this period, authorities are being extra cautious. Political figures are also urging the public to come together and remain unified. Experts have also asked Joko Widodo supporters to celebrate quietly and on the down low. And that's exactly what Indonesia needs right now, understanding and support towards one another.
All right. Thank you, Takina. In the Philippines, official results for midterm elections seem to give the president a stronger hand. Allies of Rodrigo Duterte won 9 of the 12 seats at stake in Senate elections, and they complete the 24-member assembly. A former national police chief under Duterte claimed one of the seats. Ronald De La Rosa helped enforce the president's controversial crackdown on illegal drugs. Other winners in the elections include 3 of the president's children. And now to Yemen, where the UN's food agency is threatening to suspend aid to areas under Houthi control if local leaders do not address theft and fraud in food distribution. The World Food Programme says its greatest challenge in the country comes from what it calls the obstructive and uncooperative role of some Houthi authorities. It says humanitarian workers have been denied access to the hungry, and local leaders have interfered with food distribution. It also says some Houthi commanders have repeatedly challenged the agency's ability to choose how to distribute the food aid. It's time for our special series on Asian civilizations. Today is the last day of the week-long gathering on the Dialogue of Asian Civilizations, and we head to Vietnam to learn about its homegrown religion, Cao Daoism, and bringing together Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. Cao Daoism is rich in symbolism by drawing on elements of other faiths. Ryan Mel says more.
Cao Daoism was established by God the Father in 1926, and Tainan was chosen as the Holy Land for our religion. We worship the eye of God, the spirit of the conscience of humanity, and that is the universal eye, to mean that God is the master of the universe, and all humanity must accept this. In Cao Daoism, we consider compassion as the basis of the religious practice. We also consider benevolence and righteousness as the motto of the religion, serving human beings as the action, and saving souls and spirits of humanity as the target of the religion.
Four times a day, services take place here at the Great Temple and at other local Cao Dai temples. And then twice a month, on the 1st and 14th day of the lunar month, special midnight services take place.
The purpose of Cao Daoism is to unite the 3 religions, Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. That's why the dignitaries of the religion wear different colored robes. The yellow represents Buddhism, the blue represents Taoism, and the red Confucianism. This is the most sacred place of Cao Daism, and also of the temple, because this is the place where the spirit medium, through seance, received direct messages from God and no other deities to instruct and manage the religion. In the middle, you can see the figure of the Buddha. Then the spiritual head of Cao Daism, Li Bai. There's Lao Tzu, Confucianism, the goddess Guan Yin, and Jesus Christ. In the octagonal palace, a most sacred place, here is the tablet of Victor Hugo.
Victor Hugo was a famous French poet and writer, but in the Holy Word, he was a saint. We got a special sacred mission from God to come and help to develop Gaudíism around the world. Since the religion was established in 1926, there are now 6 million followers of Gaudíism in Vietnam and in other countries like the United States, Canada, Cambodia, Belgium. There are also many more followers.
Taxila is an important archaeological site in northern Pakistan. It's located at the junction of 3 major Asian trade routes. Our correspondent Daniel Khan takes a walk in the lonely streets of the once thriving town.
Pakistan is known as the cradle of Buddhism and the hub of Gandhara School of Sculpture, a treasure trove of arts and crafts. The town of Taxila was once the spiritual and cultural hotspot of one of the earliest civilizations of the world, Buddhism. Buddha was born in the year 563 BC and died in 480 BC in Lumbini. He could only reach India, and in Kushinara, a stupa was built at the place of his death, but many of his followers came here to Taxila. In 327 BC, Alexander the Great conquered Taxila, and later it came under the Mauryan dynasty and reached a great level of development under the rule of Asoka. The next period in Taxila's history was that of the Indo-Greek descendants of Alexander's warriors. And the final era is known as the Gandhara period. The great Kushan dynasty was then established in 50 AD, and during these 200 years, Taxila became the most renowned center for philosophy, art and learning before it was vandalized beyond repair. In the 5th century, this place was completely destroyed by the Huns, and later it was devastated by earthquakes, and it was only 1915 that the city was discovered by a Britisher named John Marshall.
Built in 1928, the museum is home to a significant and comprehensive collection of Gandhara art dating from the 1st to the 7th centuries. Most pieces in the collection here were excavated from the ruins of ancient Taxila.
There are many images of Buddha and numerous panels describing the important stages of his life. The historical sites at Taxila are being maintained to protect and preserve it from any changes to its authenticity. Attention is being paid in conservation plans to maintain original designs, traditions, techniques, locations, and settings. Taxila became a protected antiquity after a law was passed in 1975 by the government of Pakistan, and later it was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the year 1980. Daniel Khan, CGTN, Taxila.
Australia is testing a world-first camera system aimed at catching drivers who text behind the wheel. Well, the technology is already proving to be a valuable tool and is highlighting the scale of a serious problem. Greg Navarro has more.
Most law enforcement officers will tell you that there are enough distractions on the roads we face each day without consciously adding to them. Yet from the unique view of a series of high-tech cameras perched above 2 Sydney roads, it seems some people just don't get it.
The best drivers in the world can't text and drive. The best drivers in the world can't check their Facebook and drive. It's just not possible.
That fact hasn't stopped some people from trying. This driver thought using 2 phones was a smart idea. That's why mobile phone detection cameras were installed late last year in a pilot program trialed on Sydney roads. The system uses artificial intelligence and works at speeds of up to 300 kilometers an hour, day or night. It's now catching more than 1,000 people each day.
In fact, you know what? We're surprised it isn't even higher. This is an occurrence that you see right across the road network here in Australia.
It's estimated that 1 out of every 10 deadly crashes on Australian roads is linked to drivers using their mobile phones.
Let's say you're driving at about 60 kilometers an hour and you make the decision to glance down at your phone, which statistically lasts for about 2 seconds. During that time, you will have traveled 33 meters. That's the distance the camera has covered while I've been talking, and then some. The problem is, you'll have done it blind, meaning you didn't see a thing that was in front of you, and you've just doubled your risk of being involved in a serious crash.
Despite those numbers and graphic ad campaigns, the problem isn't going away.
Unfortunately, road trauma touches everybody in the community.
It's a fact that Alexander Janik is well aware of. In 2013, his friend, 29-year-old James Rapley, was killed by a distracted driver. That prompted Janik to create a company called AccuSensus. It aims to reduce distracted driving and created the technology used by these cameras.
Our solution is designed to catch those drivers who are using the phone in the most dangerous scenario, so where they're driving and at high speeds.
Janik says his system is receiving interest from several countries also trying to combat distracted driving. For now, drivers caught on their phones receive a letter. If the technology is adopted by New South Wales, offenders could face hundreds of dollars in fines and a loss of points on their driver's licenses. Greg Navarro, CGTN, Melbourne.
So somebody's watching you while driving and texting. That will do it for this edition of Asia Today. I'm Zhu in Beijing. To stay updated on all those stories, you can follow us on CGTN and its social media platforms. Up next is Dialogue.
Greetings and welcome to your weather report. I'm Bo-Yi Poon. Well, here in Asia, we've seen some hot conditions and things are heating up for some other areas. Now, we're actually going to see things heat up for the Middle East. Things are going to continue to be hot for South Asia. India has actually seen hot conditions since late April. But over here in East Asia, we're going to see things heat up as well. We do have a ridge of high pressure that could potentially bring a heat wave to us here in northern China, where Beijing is located